Tonight on News 5 Live, the first group of Belizean repatriates arrived by sea in Belize City over the weekend, but will remain in quarantine for 14 days before being allowed to reunite with their families. Unemployment lines grow with more layoffs in the tourism sector. Harvest Key sends home 300 persons. Police in Orange Walk are investigating the callous murder of Abner Novello. The watchman was found with chop and gunshot wounds on a farm off the Yo Creek Road. A misunderstanding between two groups of men in the old Hattsville area ends with 4 men injured. An uncle and nephew are beaten and stabbed with the scissors, and 30 minutes later 2 others are chopped to the head and back. And an endangered croc starves with 82 plastic bags in its stomach. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
In these challenging times, the one
evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Tuesday, May 26. I am Marlene Cuellar. Belize's borders remain closed, but on Saturday, a first group of Belizeans to be allowed to re-enter Belize due to the COVID-19 pandemic arrived on a Royal Caribbean ship. Belize remains COVID-free for 45 days, so protocols are in place to prevent any imported case by sea, air, and land. The group of nationals was on the vessel for more than 70 days, and Saturday was the first time they set foot on land. They were immediately placed on quarantine and will remain that way for 14 days. News 5's Isani Caetano reports.
A single cruise ship anchored several miles east of Belize City on Saturday morning. However, its arrival in our waters did not signal the resumption of the lucrative tourism industry. Instead, the Royal Caribbean vessel was here only to drop off a small group of Belizeans who had been on board for just about 2.5 months.
We haven't touched land for the last to the next 72 days since we haven't touched land. Our ship was basically just in the Caribbean. We were off the coast of Tampa, Florida. So nobody touched land. There was nothing came on board. We just stopped, pick up food. Everything was actually pretty good. But I just feel really good for the back pan land because we haven't been on land for a long certain period of while. So for me, I just feel glad. That's my happiest moment for just touched land.
The country remains under a state of emergency. Its borders and ports of entry are closed, even to citizens who find themselves on the outside of its boundaries. This homecoming is the first repatriation of Belizeans since the total lockdown that began several weeks ago.
On my ship, there wasn't anybody that actually had the COVID-19 on board, so it was pretty safe.
Despite being out at sea, away from the coronavirus pandemic that continues to wreak havoc in other countries across the world, Akeem Gill, an art associate employed by Celebrity Cruise Line, is one of a handful of locals who could not re-enter Belize before today.
The information that it may sound like when we watch Facebooks and stuff, like it sounds like we were captured or something like that. That's the information that I was getting, but to me it wasn't nothing like that. Actually being on board, they gave us everything we needed.
They were all well tended to on board the cruise ship, but were confined to their respective quarters. Gladys Bernardis hasn't seen her husband since he left in January.
It was really, really difficult to me when he's talking to me and tell me I am here in the cruise ship in quarantine, lockdown and everything. It's really, really hard for me. As a wife, it's really hard for me.
Now you have 2 kids. How have they been dealing with the fact that their dad has been away for so long?
My children, they are so sad about this situation, but I'll always are there for them and everything, talk to them. Finally, one day he will come back and everything and try to keep them in a good way and everything.
His safe return to Belizean shores, however, is somewhat of a bittersweet moment since Gladys won't get to see him until the 14-day mandatory quarantine has elapsed.
I am so happy this morning because it's a nice morning to see my husband again for so long, for 4 months. And I thank God for that, and I am so happy with all my family.
The scene at the Radisson Pier on Saturday morning saw a considerable police and BDF presence. The immediate area between Baron Bliss Lighthouse and Memorial Park was blocked off to vehicular and foot traffic to ensure that no one came remotely close to members of the group. For the next 2 weeks, they will be in isolation at the Radisson Fort George Hotel.
We're very, very excited. We're excited because this is the first step to continuing to bring people in, but we're excited to see these Belizeans get off the ship. As you could see by their enthusiasm, they're very excited. I'm also excited because they seem like they've been under very tight protocols on the ship. So they already know the rules and regulations. I don't think we're going to have any problem with them. I'm also happy to see that, Belize is on top of this. We have all the right officials here. We have police presence. Actually, BDF is here. And they're going to make sure that everyone's doing the right thing. And, that's pretty much the protocol. We're keeping our social distancing. They won't be leaving the rooms. They'll be handing their linens out. We'll be handing linens in. We're going to keep, all the protocols going so we're all safe.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Caetano.
The lockdown across the country has minimized crime, but all that changed in the Orange Walk district on Saturday, where a grisly find was made. The body of Abner Novello was discovered on a farm in Yeo Creek where he was the caretaker. All indications are that he met a horrible death. His hands were viciously chopped off, his knees slashed, and there were gunshot wounds on the body. The police are looking at all angles, but there is reason to believe that the murder was related to drug activity. Here is News 5's Hippolyta Novello with this report.
The body of 30-year-old Abner Otoniel Novello was found on this farm that he guarded, a few hundred yards off the San Antonio Road leading to Yeo Creek Village in Orange Rock District. The gruesome discovery was made around 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, when Novello's body was found lying face up, soaked in his own blood.
Mr. Novello is the watchman of the farm that he was found on, and he was found in the yard or on the compound some 15 to 20 feet away from the building which he occupies. And at the time he had chop wounds as well as apparent gunshot injuries.
He was callously murdered. His right arm was chopped off, both his knees were slashed, and he had been chopped several times before being shot in the head. His murderer or murderers knew him. They knew where he was and at what time. Was he killed by someone he knew? Was his friend a foe? So many questions for the family, but one thing is for certain. He was clearly the intended target.
Yes, that was the case, as he had chop wounds, as I mentioned, as well as gunshot injuries.
Do you all have any indication if he had been tortured before he was killed?
None at this point in time.
Is he known as an operative in any type of nefarious drug activity?
I will just say that he is known to the police, but I'm not going to pin that on him in the absence of having no evidence to support that. So far, we have not been able to establish a clear motive. No one at this point is detained. We are following several leads, and the police continue to investigate this matter.
And as investigations continue, Police Commissioner Chester Williams made it quite clear this latest murder has everything to do with a drug deal gone wrong.
We believe that it is drug related. So at the end of the day, I do not see it as something that the police could have prevented. Obviously, these are people who knew each other, and they had some fallout over drugs, and that is what may have led to that murder in the north.
Reporting for News 5, Hippolyta Novello.
Police say that some items were missing from the property. At this time, information suggests 2 persons may have been involved in this murder. In respect of a double murder in Hopkins, police say that they don't have a clear motive or suspects for the homicide that happened on Friday morning. At this time, cops are following several leads which involve persons from outside of the village, but there's no breakthrough in the case as yet. There is speculation, however, that it is related to a land dispute. As we reported on Friday, an American national and a Belizean man were shot and killed on a farm in that southern community. Today, Assistant Commissioner of Police Joseph Maivet shared the details of the crime that police began to investigate around 9:30 last Friday when they were called out to the farm.
Upon arrival, they observed the body of a dark complexion male with apparent gunshot injuries. He was later identified as Quintin Espinosa, 55 years, of a Hopkins village address. Further searches within the area led to the discovery of another male person, later identified as Roland Burley, 70 years, U.S. national, who resides at that address. Also, he was observed with gunshot injuries. From the investigation so far, the police know that sometime around 6:30 a.m. on the said morning, shots were heard in that area, and then some 10 minutes later, a number of other shots were heard. As a result, an employee of the farm visited the area, looking for Mr. Burley, and upon him not locating Mr. Burley, he went and reported the matter to another person who then gathered a search party, and that is when they came across the discovery of the first body, and the police was alerted. At this point in time, we do not have any clear motive as to what would have caused this to happen, but we are following several leads.
Was there any known relationship between the two deceased?
The two deceased were very good friends from what I was informed, and they have farms, neighboring farms beside each other.
Sir, have you gathered any information that it may be a land dispute?
That was told to us, but that is a part of the investigation at this time.
Mason Berry, the owner of a delivery service in the West, feels that he may have been singled out and unfairly charged under the state of emergency regulations. Berry says he'd gone to Benqueviejo to do a run, and on his return trip around 4:30 that evening, he was stopped at a checkpoint in Sakut's village, where he was searched and questioned. It was all caught on camera, and the images made its round on the internet. The officer was not satisfied with Berry's reason for being out in public and proceeded to charge him. Today, Berry appeared in court and will return on July 9th. If he's found guilty of the charge, he says he will have to pay $2,000. This afternoon, we spoke with Berry via phone and also asked the Commissioner of Police for a response. Here's how that went.
When I went to the young man's house to get the mask while he was sorting them out, it seems like he didn't put it back in my school bag at that time. And when I was leaving the Benqueviejo, it started raining a little bit, so I was in a rush because I have other deliveries that I had to come and do in St. Nathan as well. So approaching the checkpoint in San Jose Socos village by the gas station, I was approached by an officer by the name of Mr. Chin, who asked me what was my reason for movement. So I explained to him that I do deliveries and stuff like that, and I was taking some masks back to St. Nathan. So pertaining to that, I searched my bag, didn't find the mask in my school bag. So I called the young man right in front of him, and the young man asked me if I could please turn back real quick because he was the one who took the mask out of my school bag. Now, I had my phone on speaker, so Mr. Chin was hearing everything else about our conversation. So then he asked me to pull on the side of the road, so in which I did know. As I pulled on the side of the road, he asked me to get off my cycle because he was going to search for a job. He asked to do a search on me, so I gave him the permission. I told him go ahead, and in which he did. After doing all this, now he turned to me and told me that I was going to be detained for not moving with a purpose. But then I told him that under the SOE that a delivery serviceman is an essential worker in which we provide service within for anyone because this is my livelihood. In this situation, I really and truly can't, I can't apply to it because, I mean, if an essential worker wishing to have the tortilla guy moving around, you have other businesses moving around as well who do the same kind of stuff. And the whole ordeal, I think, is just plain harassment because I don't believe in racism. But, I mean, I'm a dark female person trying to make my own business. I mean, we're going through a crisis at this moment. I can't be here dependent on the government and that $100 every 2 weeks to provide for my family. I have to get out there and do something. So, I mean, and then with this ordeal, he sees me every day up and down. I mean, I don't know what to make of it.
Not everything the public make nice, but we must comment, you know. I don't think I need to offer a comment for that. The police officer in question, in his wisdom from questioning Mr. Berry, believed that he could not provide a reasonable explanation for him being out. And he charged him. It's a matter for the court to decide. I'm not going to comment much about that now.
Rudolph Rodriguez died this afternoon after being the victim of a hit-and-run incident that occurred on Saturday night. It happened on the Old Northern Highway when Rodriguez was making his way home after a day of hard labor. Those who witnessed the crime quickly took the elderly man to the KHMH, where he bravely fought for his life. The prognosis, however, was not good, and in the afternoon, Rodriguez took his last breath. His nephew, Said Alvarez, told us what happened.
Around 4 p.m., my uncle left because he was called to do a labor job. He's a construction, and that's what he does. And he had finished approximately after 5, 6, sometime between that time, and he went to one of his close friends within the village, and they're buddies from ever so long. And he sat, and he drank 3 beers. That's it. And his friend then mentioned to him, you know what? I won't let you leave on your own. I will take you within the Salt Creek Road. And at the same time too, by the time his friend went to the shop across the street and he came back, that was it. He was walking his bicycle after coming from doing a labor job in the Sand Hill district, is that a vehicle of black in color actually knocked him down whilst going home. If you're coming from Belize City going up, there is a curve right before the Maskell junction going into the Old Belize Road.
Okay.
Right there is actually where it happened.
The family fears that Rodriguez's death might not be properly investigated by police. Alvarez says that the person who knocked down and killed his uncle is a well-known, highly connected person of the area.
When it comes to his name of the driver or the individual that was actually driving that vehicle, the police or the investigator does not, for no apparent reason, want to give that information or to be held liable for what has been caused. Now, from what our sources has told us is that he's actually a person of knowledge, he's well known. To take it any further, we can't see if it's high above or if it's someone, like I said, within the ministry or some type, we can't say until the investigation is completed. But like I stated, what makes it really disgraceful from their end is that there hasn't been anything up to this very point that states the accident, who is being held accountable, or anything of that sort. And the only way that they will do something about it is up until this day when my uncle passed. Apart from that, there isn't anything that has been done, such as a urine or a blood sample. There hasn't been any type of intent of prosecution, an NIP. There isn't anything that states or that has been given to the end. There is no information apart from that that's been given to us. And it's really ridiculous in that sense as to what is actually going on. They could have done something between then up until this point of one, either having to get away with some type of evidence because one, his blood or his urine won't be able to show if they were intoxicated with alcohol or with some form of drugs. Two, yes, they may already have the car impounded, but because the individual is of known, we already know what's going on in this country, how corrupt the government really is, especially when it comes to individual that's working within the ministry.
Coming up, massive layoffs at Harvest Key, and the Belize City Mayor calls for a complete reopening of the economy.
Hello, friends. I'm Dr. Bob
The tourism industry is a major player of the economy, driving job creation and foreign exchange. But COVID-19 has severely affected the industry, causing massive layoffs. As a first step to restart the industry, domestic tourism is heavily promoted, but that sector contributes in the range of 5% to the overall sector, and there is still uncertainty as to when and how the industry will look post-COVID-19. Last week, Tropic Air sent home 220 persons. Hotels and resorts also sent home droves of employees. Cruise tourism has also been hard hit, with cruise ships showing large number of infections. At Harvest Key, some 300 persons have been laid off and sent home, hiking the joblessness numbers way up. Here is News 5's Isani Cayetano with this report.
Another massive layoff is being reported in the cruise tourism sector, where Norwegian Cruise Line has sent home close to 300 employees from its Harvest Key destination in southern Belize. Despite raising $2.2 billion to stay afloat by pledging a pair of vessels and the privately owned island as collateral, NCL has been forced to temporarily shut down its operations in Belize. The dismissal of employees comes amid the coronavirus pandemic, which has seen a collapse of bookings and a demand for refunds on cancelled cruises. The Florida-based company, whose ships have been prevented from sailing due to the COVID-19 contagion, had recently announced that it was planning a $1.6 billion debt and equity fundraising, which was eventually raised to $1.8 billion on the back of strong investor demand. Earlier this month, Prime Minister Dean Barrow spoke briefly on NCL's financial woes and the fact that the company did not reach out to government concerning its transaction.
We did have somebody from the Financial Times reach out to us. Norwegian, as you know, floated some bond to try to raise financing so that they would be in a position to continue once cruise lines begin to operate again. The question was, did we have any concern because they put up Harvest Key as collateral for, or as part of the collateral for to underpin the offer, the solicitation that they made for people to purchase their bond. We were asked, well, did they consult with the government of Belize? Answer is they didn't. And what is our position in terms of what the reporter described as a national asset being possibly on the chopping block? We made the point that while it is, and has been for some time now, the policy of the government not to have any keys alienated into private ownership, local or foreign, that private ownership of Harvest Key predated even Norwegian's purchase of the property. So there was nothing we could do to stop one private owner from selling Harvest Key, which he owned, to Norwegian. Norwegian, having bought the key free and clear, certainly legally was entitled, as they have done, to put it up as part of the collateral for the loan or the bond that they were floating. I saw where, in fact, their bond issue was successful. I think they raised in excess of $2 billion. So the answer to your particular and pointed question is that with that kind of money, one would expect that they will continue to operate once the cruise industry opens up. And my best sense of that, I believe they've actually put out schedules that propose a start date of August.
The company has suspended all voyages until June 30th, while the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has issued a no-sail order for cruise ships that lasts until July 24th or until COVID-19 is no longer considered a public health emergency. In the absence of arrivals, many who were employed by NCL in Harvest Key have been left jobless, and it remains unclear whether they will be rehired when those ships are allowed to leave harbor. Reporting for News 5, I am Isana Cayetano.
A list of questions was sent to the Public Relations Department for NCL in Miami. At news time, there has not been any response. It's been 45 days since there has not been a confirmed case of COVID-19 recorded in Belize, a fact that has placed Belize in a unique health position on this side of the world. But even as most businesses have been allowed to reopen, companies who trade in non-essential services have been experiencing declining revenues, contributing to the unemployment numbers, especially in the tourism sector where large-scale layoffs are taking place. An economic recovery plan is yet to be presented to create business opportunities to restore economic activity, so the private sector continues to shrink. Some sectors of the Belize Indian community are also feeling the pinch. Belize City Mayor Bernard Wagner says that a first recommendation to the National Oversight Committee is for the lifting of additional restrictions to allow the economy to reboot.
We need the relevant authorities to begin to see that the pandemic, while you want to be cautious, you have to begin to open back business. What is business in a city if it is not functioning? And we need our city to begin to reopen up. We need to see life back in a city. A city is nothing without the life, without the business activity. And many of our business owners in our city are struggling. We can't allow this to continue any further. We have gone 45 days without any new case, and that clearly that is some level that is telling you something there, that is telling you a story. And I hope that the Oversight Committee will begin to look seriously at reopening back business so that we can get back to the business of the people.
From our perspective, and I think certain industries and certain stores and certain sectors, genres that are doing better than others, I think a lot of it is based on necessity. I think there's stores who are not necessarily involved or dealing with things that are necessities probably aren't doing as well. I think stores that are dealing with necessities and food items are probably doing a little bit better. It was great to see this weekend that everybody was out and about, traveling and enjoying and keeping the dollars in Belize.
While we were with the Belize City Mayor today, the media asked for an update on the revenue streams at the council. In April, when the state of emergency was declared, economic activity came to a screeching halt at City Hall, and there was merely a trickle of income. More than 400 staff members, except for sanitation workers, had to take a pay cut, and that includes councillors. Now, going into week 3 of eased restrictions and the reopening of most businesses, traffic at City Hall is gradually increasing, so much so that badly needed revenue has picked up. Mayor Bernard Wagner gives an update on the financial flow at the council.
We have seen some little improvement on May the 15th. Our weekly revenue for that week was 258,000. For May 22nd, it went up to 300,000. We are also seeing activity at City Hall. The average for May 15th, we saw 958 customers visiting the traffic department. Last week, ending May 22nd, it was 1,017 people going to the traffic department at City Hall. It's in the neighborhood of close to 523 were there on May the 15th, and on May the 22nd, ending May the 22nd, it was in the neighborhood of 800 people visiting City Hall. So we are seeing a gradual increase, and that is why we are keeping these data, because you can only plan with having the necessary data. We know that many of our staff are excited and want to come back to work, but we continue to be responsible, and we want to look at the numbers and really analyze the numbers before we make any decision in bringing back our full staff. Last time we spoke, our staff continues to do on a rotational basis. So to keep all of those 460 staff, we came together and we said, listen, for 2 weeks, the staff would work 2 weeks fully, so we get a full 2 weeks pay. and then bring in the other person, and that one go on 50%. So at the end of the day, the staff essentially is getting 75% of their monthly pay. The managers, we met with them, and they said, all right, they are willing to do 66% of their monthly salary. As the councillors and the mayor, we continue to be at the bottom level. We continue to insist that we be at the bottom level, and that is why we are now at 50%.
Mayor Wagner says that it is projected that the council will see another revenue spike prior to the June 30th deadline with the discount program. As the state of emergency is relaxed, crime is rearing its ugly head. Tonight, 4 men are recovering at the Carl Hisham Memorial Hospital for varying degrees of injury following a brawl in the old Hattsville area of Hattsville Village. On Monday night, police responded to a yard in the village where an uncle and nephew had been assaulted by a group of men. Roger Trapp was beaten to a pulp, while his nephew, Enrique Puck, was stabbed once to the chest with a scissors as he defended his uncle. Within minutes, police arrived, but by then the attackers had fled the scene. But just 30 minutes later, police were called once again to the area where 2 persons had been chopped. Christopher Hyde received a large cut wound to the left side of his head, and Calbert Mejia was chopped to the head and back. All 4 were rushed to the KHMH, where they are in a stable condition. Today, News 5 spoke with Puck's mother, Glenda Baptist, who says that her son intervened to save her brother, Roger Trapp.
I'm in my house and I hear one noise out here, but when I bust out here, I hear them boy tell my brother, I want to sell me $2 weed. My brother tell him he no sell weed. So they say, I tell you sell me $2 weed, so pure. So now, my brother not gonna weed, my brother tell me that no problem, man. I not into no trouble. So when they look at, they start whoop up in a big stick, lash in a head with a quart pint, and all kind of thing. And later on they gone. When later on I tell them get the out of my yard. When I come out of my yard, what are you doing in my yard? When I look, I see them take off when a vehicle gone back so, and it's gone at my next brother house. That where Mr. Black Slave. I then gone there, Mr. Logan. And when they gone there, they start the problem again there. And they start to beat up my brother, the back there. And so Logan just get the machete and start chop. And that saw the thing go.
So your brother and your son get stabbed?
Yeah, my brother get stabbed in his chest. Because my brother try to take away the scissors, my son get stabbed in his chest.
Wow. Now, all this is over. Just want to leave $2 weed?
Yeah, he want $2 weed because they want $2 weed. My brother tell him he don't sell no weed. That's what my brother tell him. And they don't understand.
Around 6:30 p.m., Hattsville police responded to a brawl at the old Hattsville area in Hattsville Village, where several persons received varying degrees of injuries. Enrique Puck, 25 years, received a stab wound to the chest. Roger Trapp, 42 years, received injuries to his mouth. Christopher Hyde, 35 years, received chop wound to the head. And Calbert Mejia, 30 years, received chop wounds to the head and back. Investigation revealed that they were involved in a fight with several persons. Police quickly deployed to the area, and several persons have been detained. These 4 male persons are admitted in stable condition at the KHMH. And an investigation is being carried out to determine who will be the persons who will be charged. Reference this incident in Hattsville.
The gang suppression unit was deployed to the area, and it resulted in the detention of 4 persons whose name will not be disclosed at this time since charges have not been levied. All 4 were escorted by the GSU to Ladeville Police Station, where they remain in custody. According to Senior Superintendent Gilberto Romero, the police department is investigating whether the incident is linked to rivalry over territory and the sale of marijuana.
Hattsville has been a hotspot with a lot of shootings, murders, and this type of thing. And there's a rivalry between groups over turf and sale of marijuana, etc. Did this have anything to do with any of the previous rivalries that we've been reporting on?
That is being investigated at this time, but at some point these persons had some misunderstanding, and that is what led to this fight, and they are receiving the injuries.
The village of Santa Cruz up north is a haven for contrabandistas and a way of life for the villagers. Santa Cruz sits immediately in front of the Mexican community of Botes across the Rio Hondo. For decades, contraband has flowed across the river and all sorts of goods make their way illegally into Belize. But authorities want to keep Belize free of possible cases of the novel coronavirus from being imported from the Mexican side. So BDF and police presence is being beefed up at Santa Cruz to keep the contrabandistas at bay. Here is Hippolyta Novello with this report.
In Santa Cruz village, there is a contraband gateway, an illegal point of entry which Belizeans from across the country use to paddle across the Rio Hondo and into Botes, Mexico. The village is known as a contraband hotspot, and Commissioner Chester Williams wants contraband activities to cool down given the COVID-19 pandemic and Mexico's increasing numbers.
Looking from here, you can see the Mexican village of Botes. So it's a very convenient location for contraband. However, as you can see, we have the presence of the BDF here, and we also have a police patrol for this area, specifically for this area. So with that, I believe we have been able to curtail the occurrences of contrabanding within this Santa Cruz area.
Canoes used to transport the contraband from Botes to Santa Cruz were in the area. They have been there for quite some time, and authorities want to keep it that way.
There's a number of boats you can see in some corner over there that were being used to run contraband. We have some degree of control over them now, so to some extent we have disabled the people who are doing the contraband, but there are still many blind spots in the area that needs to be monitored.
And that is where the BDF patrol comes into play. Armed officers traverse the Rio Hondo looking out for contrabandistas.
What is done with the BDF boat patrol is that they go to Douglas to the east and then to Blue Creek to the west, ensuring that the entire river area is patrolled on a daily basis, looking for those persons who are trying to take advantage of the blind spots.
Chairlady Kimberly Medina says that contraband activities have decreased significantly.
It stopped a lot. It was controlled due to the BDF being installed here and staying almost for 3 weeks from now. So that has stopped, but we have to keep in mind too that's not only the villagers, we also have some Mexican side boats that are coming in and out. So we're trying to control it day by day.
Are the Mexicans making sales on this side?
Not really, since the BDFs are here, so they are patrolling every day, going in and out of the village. We have police, immigration, all security forces, so that's very hard for them to be coming here.
Reporting for News 5, Hippolyta Novello.
After the break, a man accused of murder is freed and 2 minors are allegedly raped in Dangriga.
Save. The credit
Feli Garcia is at home with his family tonight after he was found not guilty of murder today in a trial without a jury before Supreme Court Justice Colin Williams. Justice Williams delivered the verdict after an adjournment following closing submissions by Garcia's defense attorney Anthony Sylvester. Last Friday, Justice Williams did not allow the caution statement, which the prosecution presented as evidence on key bases, including that the police did not afford Garcia time to talk to his family, a lawyer, or a justice of the peace while they held him in detention. In addition, Garcia was abused while in police custody. The Lords Bank resident was on trial for the October 2015 stabbing murder of Irvin Franklin. It was brought out in court that he was trying to part a fight when the deceased got stabbed. Garcia told us today that he paid a steep price for trying to do good. Now, he's all the wiser.
When things are concerned, you don't put yourself in it much less. As much as you don't want to play one mediator to it, you don't put yourself in a situation. But the other question that arises is that why me acting as a mediator, evidence given to police, but he still bypassed that and give me one charge sheet for murder, whereby given there wasn't any kind of evidence, concrete, circumstantial, nothing. Just referring me as a person inflicting a woman on someone.
You're very young, you still have your whole life in front of you. What's your goal now? You've moved past this, you're out, you're free.
Mama, to be honest, I'm free, but they say the freeness that we look upon will be outside, but the inside torment where I've gone through, that always take me, because I gone through that torment while aggressing to becoming a man. So that will always be in my psyche, because that's all the jail time do with me. But like I said, our learning journey.
What's the first thing you're going to do when you reach home? I know it's lunch hour you're going to eat, but after that?
I go reason in my mom, because at the end of the day, as much as I'm in prison myself, my mom was in prison along the journey too. So she's basically the person I really want to talk to and see that whole 5 years I just calming just half a face. Yeah.
Also in the court, the prosecution in the attempted murder trial of Yulid Allen on instruction from the Director of Public Prosecutions withdrew the charge against him before Magistrate Albert Hoare. Allen was accused of the 2019 attempted murder of Police Constable Leon Ihinio when police intercepted them, presumably as he and an accomplice on a motorcycle were planning to carry out an armed robbery between Coney Drive and the Philip Golson Highway. The allegation was that when police ordered them to stop, Allen jumped off the motorcycle and pulled out a firearm and shot the officer. There is a disturbing rape case coming out of the South tonight. 2 children were allegedly raped by a man in Dangriga. Police say that on the 23rd of this month, a woman visited the police station to report that 2 of her relatives, ages 5 and 9, were sexually assaulted. Assistant Commissioner of Police Joseph Maivet tells us more.
A 29-year-old woman visited the Dangriga police station in the company of 2 female minors who are related to her, where they reported to the police that sometime between December 2019 and January 2020, they were forced to perform sexual acts on a male person, whom the police have since detained and later charged for 3 counts of rape of a child. And that person is one Michael Eligio of a Dangriga town address.
Age of Eligio?
I will get that for you shortly. I believe he's 24.
You said they're minors. Are you able to share their age?
Yes, one is 5 years old and one is 9.
Commissioner of Police Chester Williams says that it is not easier policing during a state of emergency than it is under normal circumstances. He says that it is actually more challenging because the cops have to ensure that the state of emergency regulations are being complied with and carrying out their regular policing duties at the same time. Today, he told the press that the police department is not using the curfew to suppress crime. Williams points out that opportunities for crimes to be committed still exist.
Policing at this time is extremely stressful. It is extremely difficult, and it requires the police to exercise that balancing act, as you said. We have to look at the people right to move freely across the country, their right to engage in their own private social activity, and balancing that with the state of emergency regulation that have certain restrictions. But while we look at both of them, we still have to ensure that whatever is done, that people do understand that even though we have gone for so many days without a case, we're still not in the all clear. We must be cognizant of the fact of what exists around us. The loosening up of the measures for the state of emergency, we have no issue with it. We do have our crime fighting strategy in place. And you would know that before the SOE, most of our heinous crimes were being committed before 8 p.m. So for those who want to think that the curfew is what the police is using to contain crime, I say no to them. The potential for crime to be committed is still there because many of the measures have been loose and stores are open, many of the business places are open. People can move around more freely between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. And so the potential for crime is still there. But the effort of the police in terms of our crime fighting strategy is working, and that is what is basically containing the crime at this time. And we intend to continue to do so. Because while the police is state of emergency regulations, we cannot take our eyes off enforcing the other aspect of our work, which is to ensure that law and order is maintained from those persons who would normally have that criminal propensity. And I think that in so doing, we're doing a good job.
On the topic of the state of emergency, an online site conducted an interview with Commissioner of Police Chester Williams last week, where he's quoted as saying, quote, "I would wish to see this SOE in place for the rest of the year because at least until then we will be affected by the effects of COVID-19, unquote. Today, Compal Williams was asked about the statement, but he says his words were taken out of context. He explains what he meant on the possibility on an extension of the state of emergency.
That was taken out of context. I was speaking to the fact that should there be a second wave of COVID-19. I personally understand people concerned. I understand the position the government is in terms of the economy. And I understand the strain that this is putting on the police and the security forces to enforce. So if it is that the government should decide to lift the curfew or the SOE at any point in time, I have no issue with it because I do understand. People, for the most part, have lost their jobs. The longer they stay unemployed, the greater the potential for them to may want to do things for them to feed their families. And so they need an opportunity to work. The economy needs an opportunity to rebuild. And so I have no issue if the SOE were to be lifted. But as I said before, that is a matter for the government to decide.
When we come back, the City Council and the Indian community bring smiles to vulnerable persons and frontline workers. On a positive note, life at the Sister Cecilia Home for the Elderly will be more comfortable for the vulnerable population who has to adhere to the strict guidelines imposed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Belize City Council today made a donation to the facility through HelpAge Belize. The items range from a TV to pillows and fans. There are more than 30 residents who are confined to the home. Mayor Bernard Wagner says they cannot be forgotten as the novel coronavirus wreaks havoc everywhere. Here is News 5's Dwayne Moody.
An $18,000 donation from Belize City Mayor Bernard Wagner was handed over to HelpAge Belize and the Sister Cecilia Home for the Elderly today. The items, which include fans, a 70-inch flat-screen TV, as well as pillows, towels, and rags, is to help with the quality of life of a most vulnerable population. The council, since the COVID-19 crisis, has been reaching out to different sectors of the city, and they are now assisting senior people who are considered most at risk to the virus.
We know that our elderly in the society are the most vulnerable, and we felt that the office of the mayor and my councillors and some of our business partners that we wanted to contribute to ensuring that health-wise that these people are taken care of. We wanted to enhance their day-to-day living as well, and that's why you see the television. We felt that being indoors, they needed that little television to keep them occupied as well. We included some hygiene products, soap, hand wash, shampoo, towels, wash rugs, bed sheets and that sort of thing, just for each one of the elderly that lives at this facility.
There are currently 35 resident seniors living at the Sister Cecilia Home for the Elderly. They are between the ages of 69 and 106. According to Ivorine Bulwa, Executive Director of HelpAge Belize, this will help to keep the residents at the home comfortable and engaged with stimulating programs.
These donations will be utilized for the Day Activity Center and, more importantly, for the Sister Cecilia Home. You may have observed there are quite a number of fans, and certainly the fans are needed. The weather is extremely hot, and so keeping our older older clients cool and well hydrated, it certainly will serve a purpose. I noticed there's a large screen TV. It will be helpful. You know, there's quite a number of programs that can be stimulating, and I am certainly thankful that our clients at this time, when there is the limitation of interaction with visitors, they can be occupied.
During the COVID-19 situation in Belize, a number of activities have been suspended, but HelpAge Belize has still been able to reach out and provide service to the senior citizens it works with across the city.
The clients would come here during the day, and they would be here from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Those activities have ceased because of their safety. And well, we did not want to leave our clients abandoned. What we have been doing, we have been serving Meals on Wheels. We serve 124 meals for the week, and it provides us with an opportunity to be in contact with them, to see how they are doing.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Saving the best for last. Today, the Belize Indian community issued its last batch of vouchers as a part of its pantry program to assist those affected by COVID-19. The recipients, however, were frontline workers from the Carl Hushna Memorial Hospital and the police officers who work around the clock to secure the business community in downtown Belize City. That brings the total to 2,000 families directly assisted by this program and who received $80,000 worth of groceries, toiletries, and basic necessities. News 5 was there for the handing over and spoke to the recipients.
It's always a privilege for the frontline workers at KHMH to receive any token of appreciation. They've always been on the front line, being essential workers, and I am sure, particularly our ancillary support staff who've been there alongside our professional team, they will definitely benefit from such a kind gesture.
On behalf of the Commissioner of Police and the Officer Commanding Eastern Division, we express great thank you for the token of appreciation, and this pantry ticket will definitely go a very long way for our officers. We have always been on the front line, and from the beginning of this entire, what we call semi-lockdown, we were always out here. We open up again, to almost semi-normal, and then our officers have always been on the front line, and it will definitely go a long way. Our officers have always been out here, and we often go unappreciated. Some members of the public will never always see what the positive that police officers do, and thanks to the Indian community for recognizing us and assisting us in with this kind gesture.
We sat with a lot of the standard bearers and the area representatives because we figured they would cover the most ground because they had the wherewithal and the logistics. From the beginning, we've been discussing the frontline workers and the police department, but we were just trying to find the opportune moment. And like I said earlier, I think we saved the best for last. And they have been instrumental in this, and we know they're the ones who are there fighting the fight when we were all nice and comfortable in our homes. They were out there fighting that good fight, and so that's something that we wanted to make sure that we came out big for them as they had done for us.
Coming up after the break, more than 80 plastic bags are found in the stomach of a croc that had to be euthanized.
Yeah, where they go on?
You go out, my dog?
Yeah, at the car,
Everybody has that one loyal friend.
The environmental community is without one of its members tonight. Dr. Candy Gonzalez passed away over the weekend. Gonzalez was the founder of the Belize Institute of Environmental Law and Policy, BELIPO, and one of the co-founders of the Belize Coalition to Save Our Natural Heritage. She is remembered as an outspoken advocate for the Maccal River, and over the years she led sustained research and advocacy against dams. Today we spoke with Senator Osmani Salas, who tells us more about Gonzalez's contributions to the conservation and NGO communities.
Dr. Candy Gonzalez, I would consider her, I would call her an environmental warrior. She was very passionate about her work in environmental conservation and advocacy. She was completely committed and accomplished a great deal during her lifetime. She will be missed, for sure. She will be missed in relation to everything that she did. So, for example, she founded and led several NGOs, including BELPO, Belize Institute of Environmental Law and Policy. She was driving force behind Macongo for many years in the Belize Alliance of Conservation NGOs. And through her organization, BELPO, she was also leading force behind the Coalition to Save Our Natural Heritage, a group of NGOs that successfully achieved the indefinite moratorium on offshore oil exploration. So that's another of many accomplishments that could be credited to her in large part. No? I must also say that she was one of the founding members of the Belize network of NGOs that was formed over 3 years ago to elect the NGO senator. And after that, the Belize network of NGOs then became a coalition of NGOs that has been working at strengthening the NGO community. Dr. Candy Gonzalez was one of the original members of that network. So she did accomplish a lot. She cared a great deal about the Maccal River, the health of the Maccal River, hence her advocacy against dams. She did a lot of research to show what the health and human impacts of dams would be. And she kept to her. She was very principled. She never wavered from her principles. The good thing with Dr. Gonzalez is that she left a lot of her work documented. For example, she helped to put together a guide to public participation, which will be a useful tool for generations to come here in Belize. Document a report that provides some guidance on how to do effective public participation. To a great extent, that was triggered by the environmental impact assessment, requirements that when environmental impact assessments are done, it is critical that there is extensive, meaningful and comprehensive public consultation not consultation for the sake of it, not in name alone, but meaningful. So that guide to effective public participation is one example of how Dr. Gonzalez, although she will be greatly missed, she left her mark, she left her imprint, and so her contributions will be felt for generations to come.
Dr. Candy Gonzalez was also an attorney at law. An American crocodile was found on the brink of death on the north side of Ambergris Ski over the weekend. He was eventually euthanized because his condition was too far gone. But the shocking discovery of what led to his emaciated condition was only made after he was put down. 82 plastic bags were discovered in the endangered croc's stomach during a necropsy. Those bags were starving the croc, whose digestive system was in a bad condition as a result. It is not entirely clear how so many bags were inside the croc's stomach, but it is believed that pollution may be one cause, followed by persons feeding the crocs in bags. We spoke with Chris Summers of ACES, who says that it's the first time they have seen so many plastics inside a croc.
He was emaciated to the point of death, and he was also missing about 2/3 of his tail, which was really, really badly infected. We already knew he was going to have to be euthanized. I've never seen an animal looking so bad. So we spoke to forestry, we spoke to wildlife vet up in Cayo, and you know, everybody kind of agreed that it was best to end the animal's misery.
Right, and after he was put down, I believe you guys did an incision on him to find out what was going on inside?
Well, we did a necropsy just so we could find out what else was going on inside, other than the obvious external injuries. You know, when we got to the stomach, we could see that the stomach was full to the brim, absolutely filled. But the intestines were shriveled and tiny from lack of use. And we could feel, when we felt the stomach, we could feel it was full and it was solid, but it wasn't natural. And as soon as we made that first incision into the stomach, you saw the plastic immediately. It was just full of plastic. You didn't have to dig around. It was just absolutely compacted with plastic bags.
Wow. I mean, what was your reaction when you saw something like this? I imagine it was quite a sight.
Oh, yeah, you're horrified. I've never seen nothing like it. I mean, you know, you find the odd 1 or 2 bags, you know, when you do a necropsy in a croc. You know, same as marine animals out in the ocean, you know, you do a necropsy here and there, and you find the odd plastic bag that's been accidentally ingested, but this was 82 plastic bags. 82. Never seen nothing like that. It's insane. Absolutely insane. This animal starved to death on a full stomach. It's insanity. Absolute insanity.
Right. Chris, what would have caused that croc to have consumed or ingested so many plastic bags?
I don't know. My first thought is people feeding them to him. Some could be accidental ingestion. You know, these animals have been habituated to come for chicken. So if there's a bag on the floor and they're hungry and it smells like chicken, they might pick it up. But that was not the case with some of these. You know, most of these bags were chicken bags. Some of them were whole chicken bags. Some of them were the innards, you know, that have like the guts and things in them that you find inside the whole chicken. And a lot of them were the bags that have neck and back in them. Now, when we pulled these bags out of the stomach, some of them were bags inside bags. A lot of them were folded up into very tight little squares. We now have 82 more reasons to really look at this illegal feeding and the impact that it's having. So, you know, we're left with the question now of how many more of these animals up there find themselves in that situation with stomachs full of plastic. If let's just say, for sake of argument, that it was accidental ingestion, how bad is the garbage that a predator would accidentally ingest 82 plastic bags? And you got to think it's not just the crocodiles. Everything else out there is ingesting this stuff, is ingesting this garbage, all right? From turtles out in the ocean to little fish that are feeding down on the microplastics. Like, this is it's affecting the entire ecosystem.
And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at News 5 Live. I'm Marlene Koyar. Thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at News 5, please remember to wash your hands, keep your social distance, and stay safe. Good night.